Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Science of SaaS Startups podcast. Today, we're talking with Yannick van der Vaart, and Yannick is the CEO and founder of Sheetgo. They automate data management and workflow processes by connecting and syncing data across different spreadsheets and platforms. So, Yannick, welcome.
Thank you.
So I always like to kick things off by asking a few questions to help the audience get to know you a little bit better as a person. So first one, if you were going to teach a class on one thing, what would you teach?
Well, I'd probably teach about having folks find themselves. That's who they really are. And from there, try to help them out and leading them where they want to go with life. Maybe because I have kids, that's I think the most important part.
It's quite interesting. I don't know if this is very big internationally, but there's a thing called the School of Life in the UK, which is a company which writes books and does videos and podcasts and all kinds of different things. And is a philosopher called Alan de Botton who's behind the company. And I was reading one of their things the other day, and it's talking about what is education and what's it for, and saying that perhaps one of the things that would be a really useful life skill, which we never learn about at school, is trying to learn about what we want to do with our lives. And that actually sounds like it would be a really important class to be taught in schools, but we never get taught that, unfortunately. So.
I think so, and I think from there, getting into tech, I think from there, getting to know the hacks to get to that is also super important, because I find that we have all this structured education of how to get to do things, but there's so many folks that have hacked their way to, be singers or be millionaires or put out some tech out there, right? And so I think, doing a combination of both would be great. I'd sign up all my 5 kids into that one.
Yeah, okay. They don't get a choice, so they have to take the class anyway. So what one thing is there which can instantly make your day better? So it might be like a walk on the beach or a cup of coffee, or what thing just kind of lifts your day straight away?
For me, it's doing sports. I'm an ex-athlete, and nowadays I came back to playing tennis after 30 years, and anything related to tennis, or it could be doing sports, going to stretching, go to a gym, go run, spinning, whatever it is, or play tennis actually. For me, that's what gets me, and that's the second thing I do. The first thing I must do is always take my kids to school, give them some nice kisses, and wish them a wonderful day. Those are 2 basics for me every day.
Yeah, and I also kind of love to exercise as well. It's amazing, just the ability of exercise to get rid of kind of problems which you've got nagging you in your head.
I'm not sure they get rid of them.
Well, not get rid of them, but for a little while at least. So, yeah. So if you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Learning. Sorry, I mean, in the whole thing, I'm just learning more faster. So today, Charlie Munger passed away, or last night. Is someone that I admire a lot. Warren Buffett's right-hand person, but more than that.
Okay.
And I was trying to remember last night what I learned when I went to the Berkshire shareholders meeting last year from him. And man, there's just in a day of being in front of him and listening, so many things to learn. I had to go back on my notes and go back on other things, and wow, just being able to master so many things. I would love to master. He talks about 25 things. I was reading some of those things today. If I could just master a couple of those, it'd be great. So learning would be great.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I wanted to just ask a little bit about was, before you became a software entrepreneur, you were more a social entrepreneur in South America. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
So I was in software before that,
yeah.
And one of the things that happened to me when I was in software is that I got a little bit disenchanted, because at the end of the day, I wasn't seeing the end result to people. It wasn't tangible. And so I was disenchanted with software, and I was, to be precise, in SaaS software, B2B, 20 years ago. So, and so when I left that world, I left it to do more tangible things. And the thing I ended up doing most in my 30s was building a real estate company, and built over 3,000 homes. I also helped start a few social impact hubs to help folks doing social entrepreneurship, which I didn't know what it was until somebody told me. But anyways, I wanted to do something tangible. So the first time I ever saw one of the houses I built, or I didn't build, but I with my own hands, but I built the team to do that. I cried. I had never cried for something I had worked on, and that was interesting. 3,000 homes later, I was crying of how hard it is to actually produce something in the world. It was the opposite. And I went back to software because it's easier. I wanted to to impact as many people as I could, to be able to be more efficient. I have a thing about efficiency and effectiveness, and I figured out that with interconnecting data in spreadsheets is a basic part of that, or interconnected data in general, and that if you get to the into layman's terms and into the end user, the day-to-day user, that's where the real information is. When I was in constructing, it was the people on site, whether selling or in construction, that really could tell me what was going on, and how do I collect that information easily, and how does that affect the company. So anyways, my social world, my social life on that was, around building homes and doing helping social entrepreneurship, and it was interesting. Funny enough, I find that Sheetgo has the kind of people that really care about that, even though it's not in our mission.
Yeah. Weird. Okay. I mean, obviously takes us quite nicely into Sheetgo. Do you want to just, give an overview of kind of what the company does and what you're trying to do with the business?
Yeah. So from the onset, not dissimilar from what I just said, we wanted to provide folks, everyday working folks, to be able to automate parts of their work, or a lot of their work, hopefully the busy work, so that they could be more efficient, effective, or spend more time with their kids, or more strategic things, or doing sports. And that's the onset of it, and that's what we're still doing. It's tough because there's 1 billion people that use spreadsheets or more, and spreadsheets is the most common way of programming, or organizing data, and it continues to be. So that's what we're trying to do. We found it's been very challenging, because reaching that many people, the number of use cases we see, the number of industries, countries, ways of looking at it, it's amazing. But that's what we're still working on.
Yeah, because obviously every other software company in the world, it seems that I talk to, they're going to a customer and trying to get them to move away from spreadsheets and stop doing all of that and come and use our software and it will solve all your problems. Whereas you're not saying that. You're saying, let's work with what you're working with today, but let's make it more efficient. Is that right?
That's right. So one of the big things we did last year was we did our year. Every year we kind of put a name to it, and last year was going beyond spreadsheets. And so now you can end up with creating a document or sending an email from a spreadsheet or from a workflow that you create, but it's still very based on using technology that people use every day, and it's all relies on spreadsheet, of course. But yeah, I'd say that's what it is. We want everybody to be able to work with it.
Because I guess when you're talking to businesses, there's quite a varying degree of technical expertise, presumably. Like, how do you, cater to people who have never encountered automation before?
We don't know how to do it very well, so that's something that you'll find with me. I don't pretend to say I know it, even though I've been in this business and been thinking about this for since the first start of this in 2008. But we rely a lot on inbound, getting down to business. So we rely a lot on inbound and being in the marketplace of Google. We're one of the 12 recommended partners of Google worldwide, and it helps to bring users. I think we rely a lot on people having the curiosity to automate. We don't do outbound. We've tried it in the past. We don't try to convince people that they need to automate. I think that pain and that curiosity needs to come within. When we've tried to tell people to do it, it's just hard. People have had the experience of how tough it is to have data points in different places, how tough it is to keep track of copy pastes, how many errors that can create, and also how tough it is to implement an SAP, how hard it is to implement 32 different SaaS for each of your different departments or projects you have. Until you haven't lived that, I don't think you can appreciate that automating tools that people already know within your organization, how powerful that can be. So I think we rely a lot more on our inbound who have had that pain and look for that.
And is there like a story of a customer that you've worked with who's had like lots of other different kind of software tools that they're using and they've been able to kind of, add a lot of value with what you do?
Yeah, we have so many stories from large companies that have implemented data warehouse system because they have, I think it was Oracle all over the place, and they end up with all these versions and they end up putting all in spreadsheets, which, by the way, most large companies end up putting a lot of information in spreadsheets, or at the very least CSVs. We are compatible with CSV and Excel and Google Sheets. And so we've seen it where it's, let's say, complementary to the systems that companies have. We've seen it where we had a customer once said they were about to pay $1 million to Salesforce to automate some process, and they ended up using us. And frankly, we charged too little, so I think they ended up spending, I don't know, $5,000 instead of $1 million. So we've seen that happen, and then we see small companies or small departments that are able to stick around with spreadsheets and the technology they know for years more than before they have to invest in a system. So we've seen that from small companies to large companies. We've seen that. I don't think we're ready, and the spreadsheet wasn't made for this, to replace every system that a company needs. It's not. I think there's some really great knowledge already embedded within softwares out there that can really do some things really great. But I think it works really well to fill in the gaps and to fill in that typical big ERP implementation that ends up only getting the 70% of requirements of what the actual business needs. And by the time it's done, and this is not to kill SAP or anything, I actually think that they do a great job, but any big system takes a long time and it's expensive to implement, and it normally gives 70% of the requirements that the company needs. What happens to the other 30%? And by the time it's implemented, things have changed so much that you're at 50%. And by the time there's some time that passes through that between acquisitions and all that, you'll get down to lower. So I think spreadsheet and these tools are made to fill in those gaps.
Yeah. Okay. And just in terms of the process of like starting up a business, you mentioned about how you came up with the idea, like when you were working on the kind of social entrepreneurship previously, and you've obviously kind of set up several kind of projects and companies yourself previously. On day one, like when you decide, right, we're going to start up Sheetgo, what are the kind of 5 most important things that you do that day, I guess? What are those kind of first steps that you take to start building out an idea into something real?
5 steps. I think the first step is to take a step, to just actually do something. And that's the hardest, because I remember I come from an entrepreneurial father, and I remember I was 23, just before the dot-com era busted. So it was 1998, 1999, and I had a whole bunch of ideas, things I wanted to do. And I remember sitting with my father at that time. I was doing very well in the corporate world, and sitting down with him, and I had all these ideas. And I remember him saying to me, "Look, Yannick, I think that," his name is Yannick too, actually, but I think that you have a lot of theories on how things should happen, and you've already kind of built out the business, you've already have customers, and you've already even sold the company in your head, but you haven't actually done anything." Like,
Yeah.
So I'd say that if there's one recommendation I'd have, I don't know if there's five, but the first one would be definitely to just go ahead and do something, like
Just start.
Yeah. Just start. That's the first thing. The second one,
hardest step.
Sorry, that's the hardest.
The hardest step. Yeah.
Yeah, it is just to start. You might not have a good plan. You might not even know what to do, but you just start. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd say, and I'm taking these out of the top of my head based on my experiences of my first company when I was 27 or so, 28, is be careful you start the business with. Because I've started the business with someone I didn't necessarily like that much. I've started the business with my best friend. I've started the business with folks I've worked in the past. And I'd say just you got to be careful who you're going to start the company with. I mean, I've even done business with my wife with things. And I personally think, having gone through all the motions, that if you can, try to, even though the company can be a part of you, if you try to keep aside the family and friends side, is better. Because something goes sour, it's really hard to point fingers on that. So I'd say, be careful with that. I've lost friendships, and I would try to keep that separate. Yeah. That's the second thing. So choosing who you're going to do the business with. The third one, and this is all based on errors I've made, by the way. I didn't know any of these things.
Best way to learn, right?
The third one I'd say would be do something you're passionate about. And this, everybody says this, but the other day I had an entrepreneur that wanted me to invest in his business. And I asked him why, and he was recommended to me, and well, he said, well, he just wants to just do a business, and this was a good idea. And I said, well, I mean, it's reasonable, and probably some people have done really well with that, but I cannot see myself investing in a business with someone who's not passionate about what they're doing, because it's so hard. It's so hard. You'll lose the momentum, you'll lose money, you'll lose whatever. But if you don't have a piece of passion behind it, I think it's hard for it to go very far. I invested in a company that did really well many years ago, well as in 40x the investment on that. But this guy in the 7th year was telling me that he was going to quit and he was going to start working for his wife's company. I'd invested in that company. I'm like, what? A year or so later, in the 8th year or 9th year, things changed completely. The company is now publicly listed. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, and he's still the CEO. And it's been now 15, 16, 17 years. He's also an investor at Sheetgo. But yeah, and he's been passionate. He's just crazy. He's like passionate about it. And the other one I'd say, which was something I learned at Sheetgo, is who do you surround yourself with investment? VCs in Europe, you're in Europe too, so VCs in Europe are very different than VCs in the US. Things are changing, but it's a different mindset. And if you're trying to, Americans' investment in general in this aspect, they're there to change the world. It's okay to want to change the world. To want to do that, it's normal. Here, sometimes it's more conservative. Like, no, you need to kind of build a little business, and you need to break even, and you need to do this. And wow, how are you going to compete with Silicon Valley? So choosing what you want, it doesn't mean that they're wrong, right? It depends, but you have to be compatible with your investors. Today at Sheetgo, our investors are truly amazing, very supportive of what we're doing, and yeah, if I would have to do it again, I would have chosen the kind of investors we now have. So I think that's four, but I think it's good.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Don't worry. I mean, just kind of rolling on from the last point that you mentioned, there's a lot of talk in the industry at the moment around kind of bootstrapping versus taking on VC investment. What are the companies that need VC investment, and is it better to kind of bootstrap certain companies? There's a big topic at the moment around kind of growth versus profitability, like within software companies as well. Like, what is your view on that? Do you think we've been too focused on sort of VC investment in the past, and that actually there might be a better way to do things?
I wouldn't know what the right way to do things, but I do get to spend time in the Valley, and I do have friends and investors there, and here in Europe. So, and we have one great investor. So we're 20% of our shareholders it's a publicly listed company in a market here in Spain. But and we have that investor is amazing, and they really believe in companies that are within what they call the rule of 40 nowadays. And I think it's pretty cool, rule of 40, which really pushes you to not have to limit yourself, right? Because you could be growing 100%, but and losing 60%, right, in your net profit. Or hey, you're not growing. You're growing 0%, but you're profitable 40%, and your net profit, right, which would be a lot. But yeah, I think I really like that concept because it balances you to make sure, hey, if you have the opportunity to grow, make sure you don't lose too much and you lose focus that at some point you have to be profitable. If you, for whatever reason, don't have the opportunity to grow at this moment because of the market, because you're changing direction, because of whatever, hey, just really be careful, and you might not want to burn too much, right? So I first of all, I really like that concept. But I don't think it's exclusive. I have also a friend I have a number of friends. One friend that comes to mind, he's such an aggressive person. He can live with that loss, with the ability to know that he's got 3 months to live, and he knows he's going to make it. And, there's folks like that. Right now, maybe because I'm older and, have a family and all that stuff, maybe I don't think that way. But I still think we can do a lot of things. I also have other friends that don't want to change the world, and they just want to have a nice little company and
build a nice business.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So it comes back to the first thing you said about lesson. Know yourself. See what you want. Do you want to? When I speak, I haven't done this in a long time, but when I've spoken to other entrepreneurs, I say, do you want to go home or go rich kind of thing, or do you want to go rich or break even? So it's a different mindset. I think it depends on who you are, what you want.
Yeah. Okay. So just a final question. I've been told by our lawyers that it's illegal to do a podcast now without talking about AI and GPT. So that's kind of a must to get in there. So I just wanted to ask, like, how you think about it in terms of product development and innovation in a kind of a very rapidly developing technological market. How do you think about that at Sheetgo, but also just kind of other sort of entrepreneurs and startup founders, how perhaps they might be able to think about kind of innovating in a market that is just kind of going through the roof, really, in terms of, different solutions coming to market all the time.
Yeah. A year ago when ChatGPT came about, I asked a friend of mine who's been in AI for a long time. His company creates news for Wall Street and for all these companies. I didn't even know that existed until 3 years ago. We were having a barbecue at my house, and he was telling me about all this. Most news done by AI. So I happened to know a lot about AI because of him and some other things. And when it came about that it came to public usage, within Q1, my board, rightfully so, were like, hey, have we thought about how this is going to affect us? And the reality is, at the beginning of this year, I had no idea, but I started looking at how much did we know as a company and how much did we use AI internally. We've gone from not knowing, not using, to almost everybody in the company using it daily, if not weekly, by now. And we've got, I'd say, I don't know, half a dozen initiatives regarding AI. The difficulty here, and I've talked even to our competitors have used AI so that when people look for AI, they find them, but it's gimmicky. They even tell me it's gimmicky. Yeah. We have taken a bit of a different approach. We use AI for testing, and it's working incredible for software testing. We are, I mean, it's crazy. If I gave you the numbers, you go nuts. But we're testing with 1.5 people what it would have taken us years to do before, every week. And that's amazing. Content, or obviously that's easy to know, but of course with all the Google changes and all that, you've got to be really careful. Also for customer service, we're using it a lot as well. So we think that for AI, first you need to kind of eat your own dog food, let's say. We got to understand the AI, so we use it a lot internally. Now that we've used it a lot, we create a roadmap where AI is going to be part also of the experience of our user, to have them be able to do more of what they want to do with us easier. So that's the next step. And the step after that is actually using AI, which is very natural for us. At the end of the day, people are trying to automate things. They're trying to do workflows, and AI actually fits very well there. And so we have a number of initiatives happening with that. So we make sure we balance our board says, well, now AI, don't spend too much on that because there's a lot of hype. We're one of our board members, CEO of a company that's doing really well. We don't have any AI, and we're still growing a lot. So just don't go too crazy on it. So grass is greener on the other side, kind of thing. So it's like everything, it's a good balance, but I do think it's here to stay, and there's incredible applications to it we're seeing.
Yeah, I guess you're in quite a nice position, as you say, because it kind of fits quite well with what you're doing anyway. So it's kind of a fairly sort of natural move to bring more of AI solutions in. I guess other companies are having to like force it in a little bit more, and that's when it comes across a bit gimmicky and jarring a bit for the customer, I guess.
Yeah, well, we had to force it in. I'm not gonna lie. It's like the team. It was like my team really thought I was paying for about 4 months, 5 months, insisting, are you using AI? Are you using AI? I created a survey internally. What AI products are we using? What AI products? Why aren't we using AI? There was a big change, and the change sometimes has to come from the top, if you want to call it that way, or for the bottom. But one day we had a customer asking for something. And the salesperson, it was a Friday, end of day, salesperson asked, we use Slack internally. So they asked, and I knew that the team that was supposed to answer that, our solutions team is based out of India, because a company we recently bought, was not going to be answering that. And so he was not going to be able to answer to the customer if A, we could do it, and B, how. We've been around Sheetgo, so maybe the information would be out there. So literally, I just put it into ChatGPT, said, can Sheetgo do this, and how could it do it? The answer was, yes, you can do it, and here are the 8 steps for you to implement Sheetgo to be able to solve this problem, this very specific problem of a client. And even the 6th step had something of customization that needed to do, that our solutions team would have been the one that tells us that and how to do it. And when I asked our team on Saturday morning, because the India team works on Saturday morning, I said, so is this correct? I said, yeah, I wouldn't have answered any better. And it's true that you would need an implementation to do this. And the answer was right. And there is no smart prompting on this one. It was literally a copy-paste question I asked, and it wasn't any kind of specialized ChatGPT. Like, you know, we're working with our own AI now, and we're getting a little bit better, and we can do a bit better than that now. But I just asked the ChatGPT available to everybody, and it answered to me, and that was incredible. And that when that happened, I told the team, that's it. If you're not using this every day, we're not serving our customers very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today, Yannick, and thanks for joining us. If people want to get in touch and discuss Sheetgo, what's the best way to reach you?
LinkedIn or Yannick at sheetgo.com is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Great stuff. Well, yeah, really appreciate going through all of that, and look forward to following the next stages of growth for Sheetgo.
Well, thank you, Ben, for having me. Hopefully it was helpful for you and for your viewers. And thank you for doing this. It's always interesting.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.